Hey, super friends, cutting into the beginning of the show just to drop in and say thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting us. We just had I believe it was our 5th or 6th live show since we started this podcast at Atomic City Comics. We just, this past Sunday, we did it with Doom Thugs, and oh my God, the support. The love and support that you guys showed us was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for coming out. That episode, if you weren't able to catch it live, that episode will be dropping, I believe, April 12th while we're away in Disney. So check that out. It was such a fun show. Huge thanks to my guests, Joe Gates, cat's out of the bag now, Joe Gates, who portrayed Thor, and Brian Gray, who played us some awesome music that's about nerdom. And it was just all so good. It was such a great podcast, such a great day, such a great event. So thank you for the continued support. If you're looking for other ways to support Everything is Awesome, there are 3 easy ways to do it. A, leave a 5-star review on iTunes. It's free for nothing, just a little bit of your time. 5-star reviews help other people find our show on iTunes as we climb the charts. And the more people listening, we get to do cooler and bigger things, like more live shows, bigger live shows. I would love to do a live show at an actual event, like at a Comic-Con or at a Renaissance fair. So all these things become possible when you leave 5-star reviews. So it doesn't take much out of your day. Please, we really appreciate it, and we'll read them on air. Also, word of mouth recommendations. They're huge. Tell a friend. Play the podcast in the car with a friend in there. And just when they ask, what is this dopey stuff? You can say, that's my dope-ass super friend Kev, talking to his dope-ass super friend, whoever my guest is that week. So those are 2 quick and easy ways for you to support this show and help us grow. We're always looking to grow our audience. Another way that you can help us grow is by going to patreon.com/thatentertains. Patreon is a service that allows you to support the creators that you love. And if you love us, for just as little as $1 a month, you can help us grow That's Entertainment and Everything is Awesome into something bigger and better. Right now, the plans for that money that we earn, we don't earn a paycheck from it. That every single cent will go into the company. The first deals we have are upgrading studio equipment, upgrading studio stuff, and also bringing you more content because of that. So, we have goals to bring you monthly editions of Tabletop is Awesome, monthly editions of That's Entertainment, the podcast. Entertainment is awesome, if you will. We have plans to maybe launch a device podcast, and I'm going to sit down and kind of rework it and whatnot. And it helps us create more content, which is what we're looking to do. So, Patreon.com involves a little bit of cash, but you know what? If you have the spare coin, great. If not, then you have 2 other ways that you can help support this show. iTunes reviews and word-of-mouth recommendations. Hey, I've wasted enough of your time. Let's get to the show. Here's my conversation with Daniel from the Get Real podcast. Take it away!
Everything is Awesome is part of Courts and Parts, a podcast network featuring pop culture, TV, movie, and geek podcasts. Check out some of our other shows, like TV Ate My Brain, Let's Chat with Revelin Friends, and Podstalgic at courtsandparts.com.
Awesome. Just tell people they're awesome and mean it.
Awesome.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
Awesome.
That was awesome.
You guys are awesome.
No, you're awesome.
No, you are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I am your host, Kev, and this is a show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. This week's guest came out of the blue, actually. It's a fellow network mate, if you will. If you listened to our episode either a week or two ago, you sat down and listened to me speak with Carly, who runs the Core Temp Arts podcast network, which is really just like a great group of people who I've just really began to talk with and whatnot. And big thanks to Chris Revel for getting me involved with these people. And this week's guest is someone who I really only know through a couple DMs on Twitter and listening to his guest host spot on Let's Chat with Revel and Friends. So give it up for, God damn, I am 2 years into this specific show and I'm still terrible at this. Get up for Daniel, I didn't check on your last name, from Get Real Movies right here. How you doing, sir?
Good, how are you? Don't worry. No, you don't need to know my last name. Just keep the mystery alive,
It's funny that I usually I have guests that say that because I'm that asshole that doesn't check on it. But how you doing, man? Thanks for doing the show.
Good. I'm that asshole too, so I think we'll get along famously.
So what I think is really, really interesting is, and my listeners know, but like I do zero prep for this show, so I tend to go into my interviews kind of blind for a more natural conversation. Yeah. But I do know like the most minimal things about you based off of listening to that episode with on Let's Chat, that when you guys interviewed Jonah.
Yeah.
And so you are, what, 19 years old?
18. I turned 19 in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Okay, so 18. So we so just like Chris, we are like a true generation apart. You are like the heart of millennials, whereas I ride that border of Gen Xer and millennial at 32 going on 33.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's wild because I don't think you are probably the youngest, have to be the youngest person to date on this show. So it's going to be weird when I ask this question, but like, what's your origin, man? Like 18 years ago, what happened?
18 years ago. So I was born in Liverpool, actually in England. I was born at home, so I'm one of the good kids that wasn't born with a bunch of drugs and stuff like that. So I'm not really messed up like a lot of most millennials are today. But yeah, no, I was born in England. I moved to Belgium when I was 4. I grew up there, and then I moved to Canada when I was 8. So I've lived here since 2000 and I guess 2008, 2007, 2006. Wow. Yeah, something like that. It was a while ago. But I've lived here since. And, you mentioned the youngest person on your show. I kind of get that every time I go on a new show. And with my show, my co-host, he's 22, so we have an average age of 21.5. So we call our podcast the youngest podcast of on the film podcast register. So.
Yeah, that's, I guess as podcasting matures and becomes, it's about 10, 11 years into its, infancy, we'll say, as a medium, we're going to get more and more younger people doing it just because you guys grew up. I mean, Christ, since you've been in Canada for the last 10 years, podcasting has been around. Yeah. And has probably been, for you, definitely more than me, at least probably a source of entertainment that you've taken advantage of. I've listened to them for about 10 years, but, kids today are literally growing. There's literally kids that have grown up with podcasts. You're kind of one of them.
Yeah, I am in a way, but in another way I'm not, because I actually wasn't really introduced to podcasts until about 2 years ago. And that's when I started being interested. I started guesting on other people's shows because I started this blog with a movie friend of mine called A Tale of Two Dans, because we were two Daniels, and it did really well. It was a lot of fun, but after a year we kind of went our separate ways and had different things to do. And it was around that time that I decided, okay, I really like doing podcasting. I had guested on a couple shows. People really liked it, supposedly. So I decided I start my own show. And then also I decided, okay, I might as well get a blog with it. And the blog and the podcast originally were kind of just, regular movie stuff. But now it's kind of transcended into a bigger image, bigger picture thing where it's all young writers, it's all young hosts, and we get people on there. Obviously, we'll get some older guests on too, but it's about bringing millennials' voice, like the smart millennials, because we don't get a lot of credit because there's a lot of dumb millennials out there who are like, oh yeah, this movie's the greatest movie ever, and they're talking about 50 Shades of Grey or something like that. And that sort of stuff pisses me off, right? And it gives a bad name to millennials, but that's kind of what we're doing. And our youngest writer on our site is 14. We just added a new writer who's 16. And then we just have a bunch of young writers. One guy's my age. There's a couple other people. We have a lady who's just a couple of years older than us, and it's really awesome because we're getting this young group of people together, and we're starting to get noticed a little bit too, and just starting to do more interviews with filmmakers, which I'll talk about a little later too. But I think it's really important. Podcasting it can do so much, but it's such a cool tool for at least people like me to use, because especially right now, at least, I don't think in the next couple of years, like you said, but right now, there's not many young podcasters out there. So when I say, oh yeah, I'm 18, it catches the eye a little bit, filmmakers will pay a little more attention when I send them that email, and they'll be like, oh, okay, that might be interesting, instead of, just another interview request. So that's I kind of use it to my advantage. I kind of just use I'm 18 all the time now. It's kind of worked very well for me.
Yeah, it's great to hear that there are so many young people kind of like taking a charge, with Get Real and I guess everywhere else too. But because it is millennial. I don't want to say millennials, because when I was a kid, kids had a bad rap too. We were all dumb a-holes too.
Yeah, of course.
But it's good to see, like, hey, let's take a positive spin on like being young and having opinions and whatnot, because you have and this counts twice against you because you're a millennial and Canadian, but like Justin Bieber, you have Justin Bieber as someone that kind of represents, the millennials. In a way.
Don't say that, please. He's 500,000 Canadians signed a petition to strip his Canadian citizenship. That just shows you how much we hate that kid. Like, he's just an idiot, really. It's mostly all you can say about him.
It is, and I usually, it's funny, I never really like kind of relate him to Canada, because Canada has such a reputation of being just super friendly, super nice, and just overall great people. And the few times that I've been up there for pleasure or for work or whatever, has always proven to be true. Like, I've never seen anything firsthand to say, well, no, Canadians can be just like Americans, except for this kid. Like, more often than not, you see him, and the first thing that comes to mind is like, oh, typical Hollywood brat. And it's just it's nice to see, and just like a millennial charge, I guess, when you hear so many stupid stories with millennials, because I say this, the Gen Xer here / millennial, wherever I fall on that fence, we did just as many stupid things as well, but because of the new media that we live in, because cell phone cameras and whatnot, and it's just so easily to capture the idiocy of it all.
Yeah, you guys got away with a lot more. That's what you guys had. You guys were the lucky ones.
Yes, and, it's like the baby boomers were just like, they'll say they didn't do anything stupid, but like they truly had no way to get it captured, so there's no real proof of them acting a fool. Whereas my generation, like, we were just as some of this technology was coming out. I mean, really, when new media first hit the scene. And it's hard to say, I guess, when new media first hit the scene. I like to link it to about 2005, 2006, when like YouTube and podcasting and like some of the streaming sites were starting to pop up. So that stuff really, as a again, whatever you consider my generation, because I do fall on that line. You're
just old,
Yeah, I no longer, like, I don't know. I feel like there needs to be another generation in between Gen Xers and millennials, because they're like, typically it seems like generations take up 10 years, except for millennials are like, if you're born from like 83 or 84 on, you're a millennial.
I wouldn't say that. I'd say it's 90 and onwards, really, for me at least. But I understand what you get, but no one wants to be associated with millennials, especially, if you're over, like, 25, 26, whatever 90 is, you're like, oh, I don't want to be associated with those people. Like, and... and I totally get it. No, but a lot of people like laugh, and and some people on Facebook are like, well, millennials are given such a bad rap, but we have the hardest time. And that's not true. No, we don't. We just act really stupid and do it online and do it when people are videoing us. Like, do you know how many times I've been on Facebook and I see the dumbest thing ever, and I want to comment and just say you're an idiot, but say so many more explicits, but I'm like, no, Daniel, don't do this. One day you could get into film, or one day you could maybe, I'm interested in political science, so one day you could get into politics, and this will, screw you over. So be responsible online. Just say it to yourself quietly.
And that's smart, because that's something that I would say, like, my generation doesn't have, is like, think before you act. Or at least me, I'll say. Maybe I'm just taking my own point of views and putting it to my entire generation. But I think that is something that, whereas there's definitely a ton of people, whether they're millennials or not, that take advantage, or don't take advantage of the fact that, like, hey, I'm going to be, like, I can be captured at any moment, so I don't care if I act a fool, and they're going to, not think about the future.
Yeah.
Like, there are that many
to get viral.
Yeah, but there are that many, it's, I feel like millennials can also have, or I guess at least the really smart ones like yourself, have that mindset of, let me think before I act, whereas, like, my generation, since we didn't really grow up with that being a thing, like, we kind of grew up like the baby boomers in the sense of, like, we can still hide some of our shit, except that we can't. Is like, we don't have that thing, because I'm that guy that, like, sees a Facebook post, and usually, and not anymore, I should say, like, at 32, not anymore. It was more of a, I was in my early mid 20s, and I see a post somewhere, and I'm like, I'm gonna rile, and more so just because I can. Yeah. And, like, one thing that sticks out is, like, I had someone as a friend post something on Facebook that was, like, I don't even think it was a religious post. It may have mentioned God in it, and I don't know, but it was the comment, someone else that commented on it, that, like, brought, like, this huge religious overtone to it. And, I'm fine, like, have faith, and I probably wouldn't have done this now, like, at 32 years old. But it's like 27 when I was, or 25, however young I was, and reckless. Like, I saw that opportunity as, like, I always did, like, the devil advocate thing. Like, I don't, I have a strange relationship with religion, and, like, I'm more of a guy that's like, have your beliefs, just don't, push it on people. So when I see that kind of stuff, even on Facebook, I was like, oh, I'm just going to say one little thing to start this huge argument and go back and forth, and thus crushing every political, career I didn't wish for, didn't have aspire to, but if I wanted to, I crushed it right then and there by bringing like religious hate into a conversation.
Oh my God, no! But it's funny that you mentioned that because I can obviously take credit for what I do now, but I think it's something that my parents instilled in me from a very young age. Just kind of think before you act, especially in this day and age. And I always grew up as more of a reserved kid. Like I used to have big self-control problems when I was a younger kid. I would get angry a lot, especially in like hockey. I remember in I think it was grade 5, I was playing, we were playing pickup hockey outside, not on a rink or anything, just playing. And this kid, he was the principal's son, and he would just keep whacking me with his stick, like right on my legs, and my legs were getting tired. So after a while, when he scored, I just got pissed, grabbed my stick, smashed him over. Smashed him on the helmet, and he was he was just like crazy, like he had no idea what just happened. He had a helmet on, but it still would hurt a little bit, and he was just like, and I was like on him like a second, and they had to get like 6 guys to grab me off him, and I'm a pretty skinny guy, or at that time I was pretty skinny. So like it was people were like, holy shit, we've never seen that side of you. And I'm like, yeah, I just was done, I'm sorry. but
sounds like a Broad Street bully there. That's how Flyer plays, man.
I know. I'm glad you know the nicknames of the Flyers. I already have so much respect for you.
Well, and don't have too much, because as far as my hockey knowledge goes, I know the Flyers, I know the Broad Street Bullies. That's about it. Like
that's more than anyone else.
Well, see, and I'm someone who I actually I do enjoy sitting down and watching hockey, and I got into it within the last like 10 years. Like prior to 10, over 10 years ago, I was just a football and baseball guy. And I couldn't really get into hockey. There was something about it that I didn't really, I just could not get. And it was actually sitting down with some guys that were fans of the Penguins. And I would sit down with them and watch it. And like, I'd start to like learn the game a little bit. And I know the basics of the game now. And, I was like, all right, like this is actually entertaining to watch. And so like I said, it's for me, hockey has the same issue that baseball has. And that's that there's like too many games on in the season. Like I can watch a game anytime I want, so therefore I tend to not watch them as often, because it's like, oh yeah, I can just catch the next one, or I can catch the next one, or I can catch the next one. Versus football is something I can only really watch once a week, especially if I'm like following my own team.
Yeah, I get that kind of. Baseball has way more games than hockey or basketball. I'm a big soccer fan. Just growing up in Europe, I kind of had to be, and being born in Liverpool, I really had to be, because they're, I think, with Manchester United, they're the 2 most successful clubs in Premier League history, which kind of sucks because we hate Manchester United. It's like just imagine Philadelphia versus Pittsburgh. It's that kind of rivalry, but worse. And in England they have hooligan problems, so there's some fist flying at those games usually. But but I love sports in that way, because like you can find different things to watch, and and some of us don't have to be as close-minded, because there's people on in podcasting I talk to, and they're always like, oh, hockey, blah, soccer, blah, only football, basketball, and baseball. Like, and I'm like,
no.
I'm like, that's very American.
That's you American. No, I agree though. That is like a huge mindset of Americans, and is that it's just, and I wouldn't even say basketball. At least Philadelphia for me isn't a huge basketball town. I mean, it doesn't help that the Sixers suck.
Yeah.
But for me, basketball, and maybe in time I'll enjoy basketball, but basketball kind of suffers. The reasons I don't like basketball, which is just guys running back and forth with a ball, is the same reason I used to say I don't like hockey. It's just guys going back and forth with a puck. And obviously eventually, again, I now can sit down and really enjoy a Flyers game, or any hockey game really. I mean, I have a Flyers jersey, Flyers hat. Like I go to Flyers games every now and then. So it's and like seeing hockey live is probably the most enjoyable sport that I've seen live. And I've, between that, baseball, and football. There's just something about that atmosphere about hockey fans, and especially in Philadelphia. I say that like I've gone to other hockey games, but just there's just something about that atmosphere that's so much different than baseball and football. And it's just a fun sport to watch live.
Yeah, football is interesting because I think at times it can be very slow just because it stops and starts a lot. But then you watch a game like the fucking Super Bowl and you're like, holy shit, that is the most exciting game I've ever watched. And my only regret about that game is not tweeting Eugenie Bouchard, will you go on a date if the Patriots win? Because like that whole thing went viral and she went on a date with this guy. And, you know, I've had a huge crush on her before she was winning. So I was her fan long before she started winning and getting into semifinals of Wimbledon. So, you know, if she's listening, you know, if you want to go on a date, I'm always down, definitely.
That was something that like what I miss about like being like fully into the sports scene as far as I was, which was like football and baseball, and even baseball is something that I loved as a kid, fell out of it during the strike in '93, and then came back to loving it, you know, about 2 years before Philly won the World Series. I started sitting down and watching baseball again. I was like, you know what, this is like, I think I can enjoy this again. I think I'm over whatever I had about baseball and the strike. Like, I don't know, something like it felt like it personally attacked me. And
no, I get that.
I don't know. I had an issue with like, you're making all this money and you're going to go on strike when your fans support you, and I don't know, like that was me at like 9. Like they went on strike when I was 9 years old. So I don't know what mindset I was in to have those feelings, but it took me a solid 93. It took me about 13 years to get back into basebal, and you know, the right time as a Philly fan to get back into it, because the Phillies were starting to get hot, and obviously we won in 08. But there is like, baseball is like you said, it's, for me, that's the slow sport. Baseball is the slow sport.
Oh yeah, it's like cricket in England. Cricket is this boring sport, and somehow people it's probably the most watched sport in the world, they say at times, or the most played sport in the world. But baseball I only got into a couple of years ago. I remember going to a Blue Jays game when I was younger, and that was kind of cool. You know, just the experience. But I started watching, and it was after I saw this movie Silver Linings Playbook that I picked my team finally that I wanted to support, and that was the Detroit Tigers. So
interesting.
Yeah, it was an interesting choice, but it's
interesting, the teams that we follow. There's like two mindsets usually. It's like you're born in that town and you follow those teams to death, or like, I'm gonna pick a team based off X, and like, so for me, I'm a Philadelphia fan first and foremost through everything. So and for that, for baseball and football, that means I cannot like anyone in the same division or same conference. So like, Eagles, I can't like the Redskins, I can't like the Giants, can't like the Cowboys, can't like the Mets when it comes to baseball, can't like the Nationals.
That's too bad though, because I'm an Eagles fan.
Oh, well, see, I love the Eagles. I love the Eagles. Philadelphia Eagles fan. Can't like any of the other three teams. That's why my number 2 team in football has always been the Steelers. You know, they're not only are they not in my division with the Eagles, but they're also not in the same conference. So like, I can sit down and maybe once every 4 years have to worry about an Eagles Steelers game and have to say, well, who am I going to pick? And it's always going to be the Eagles because I'm a diehard Eagles fan.
No, I love the Eagles too. I'm really glad. I'm glad that we agree on this one, and that was also because of Silver Linings Playbook. It really helped me make a lot of important decisions in sports. But
that's funny.
It's sad, supporting the Eagles a little bit because they're stuck in this lifeless division, and they can't seem to pull it together. I just hope that maybe this year is our year.
Well, and so the year that we just had, I'm actually really content with, because going into the year, I was like, before one game was played, I was like, all right, this is a rebuilding year. Like, I'm really disappointed in what Chip did to our team, but now we have this new vision, and I kind of like what we're seeing in the moves here, and despite the how the season ended, like, we had that opening season that was really, really good, and all that did to me was show potential. And I didn't get too excited. There was no reason to get too excited. Like, you can't talk about a Super Bowl with a first-year quarterback and a first-year head coach with the team and expect a Super Bowl.
No.
So everyone got hyped. Like, and that's what. When in Philadelphia, that's what we do. Like, when we see that, we're like, oh, let's get hyped about it. Like, this is great. We're going to make it to the Super Bowl, blah, 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 blah. And, like, that's just something that I've seen, for the last, I'll say 32 years, even though I don't have memories of football for 32 years. But for as long as I've been alive, I've seen that in Philadelphia, is that when one of our teams does well in the beginning, we think we're going to win it all.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, an unrealistic expectation to have as a Philadelphia fan for these Eagles. But I think what we did is see a lot of good potential. And I think that, like, building those foundation blocks of this new team is what we're seeing. And I think we're going to hopefully do better this year.
I hope so too.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to win a championship this year, but I think that we're going to. And I say this, and this is where I'm a Philadelphia. I say this often, is I think this is the coach. This is the regime that we're going to see a championship come from.
Yeah, we could start building towards a championship.
Yes,
and that's what we did last year, and that's what we can keep doing this year.
And I think for the first time I think since I have a memory of watching football, this is probably my fourth or fifth head coach. And I think that I can finally sit down and say, like, I for real mean it this time. Like, I think for real we have a championship team in the future with this regime.
In the making.
Yes, it's something that it finally feels right. I think that within the next 5 years, we'll have a championship in the city for football finally.
Yeah, and I feel the same in many ways about Liverpool. I'm a huge soccer fan, always have been, right? But they haven't won a league title in since 89 or 90. So we've and a lot of people in the Premier League, which is the biggest soccer league in the world, make fun of us for that. And we've won lots of other things. We've won the Champions League, which is like the European Cup, which is like pretty big, probably bigger than the league in some ways. But we always say this year's our year, and this year we started doing really well, and then we kind of lost it. And I hate when that happens, but with this coach and the way he sees this team, I really see us in the next, I'd say 3 years going there. But I did want to hit on one point that you talked about before. You said there's two types of fans. I think there's three types of fans. There's either ones who are born there, there's ones who pick them for reasons, and there's bandwagons. Because I run into so many millennial bandwagons who support Barcelona or New England Patriots or the Cleveland Cavaliers or the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it infuriates me. I really want to slap them when they say, what team do you support? Oh, I'm the New England Patriots fan. Oh, why do you support them? Well, my dad and everyone, they always supported them. I'm like, okay, name one player on their team. Tom Brady. Anyone else?
Yep, I agree with you. And it is that bandwagoner one is one. And the New England Patriots really, like, now that, like, we hopefully are getting towards the end of the Brady era, like, I look at that team now, like, after, that Super Bowl was, like, I was never so passionate at a game I can't remember the last time I was so passionate watching that game. We left. We ended up watching it. Me and my fiance and our kids were at her mom's house watching the game, and we eventually just had to leave because it was getting so late. And so I was listening to the game on the radio, and like just listening to well, I mean, obviously watching the debacle of the Falcons just fall. and then listening to it on the radio, and football is the only sport that I get so emotionally invested, even when the Eagles aren't playing. And my face throughout the night was so happy, and as it got closer, it was just you saw the disbelief, and then just the break when I heard that they got the loss on the radio on my way home. And it is the point is that I'm trying to make is taking myself out of that now and kind of looking at the Patriots as we talk about them. They are now the Cowboys of the 90s. When I was a kid, when I was in elementary school, there were, and there shouldn't have been Cowboy fans in a town that was Eagles.
Yeah.
But in my elementary school, there were tons of Cowboys fans, because Cowboys were the, back then they were the ones that were winning 6 or 7 championships throughout the decade.
Yeah, no, and I get that. And it was interesting watching this game.
Hey there, super friends. It's Kev, taking a quick break from my conversation with Dan from Get Real to chat about a couple things. First, let's chat about reviews. iTunes reviews, any reviews really, but specifically iTunes reviews, 5-star reviews. If you could take a moment and just leave one, that would be amazing, because iTunes has this math that when we have more 5-star reviews, it means we get noticed more by people, and that means that more people will start listening to this show, which means more people will allow us to start doing cooler things. Live shows, we do them already, let's do more of them. Spin-off podcasts, I'm hoping to do at least one special in April for Tabletop, and I would love for that to spin off into its own thing. An advice podcast with the Batman. How awesome would that be? We're looking to do a lot of cool things here, and everything is awesome, and that's entertainment. And those 5-star reviews really could help. We have one from They Call Me IAMS? IMIS? I'm not quite sure. Let's read his review. This is the most recent review on iTunes. Everything is awesome with Kevin. Kevin is super energetic and enthusiastic about podcasting. These are 2 of the main ingredients for awesome podcasts. Subscribe ASAP. Thanks, Call Me. That means the world to me. You leave your 5-star review and we will certainly read it on air. I also want to take a second to chat about a fellow Core Temp Arts podcast. They are such a great little podcast. Not little, let's be honest. They're huge. Much bigger than my Dopey Show. Much better than my Dopey Show. But, let's be honest. Every show on the Core Temp Arts Podcast Network is better than my show. But this one is amazing. Hydrate Level 4 presents Podstalgic. And I believe I'm pronouncing that correct. Apologize if I'm not. They are a film podcast where they take a nostalgic look and rediscover movies new and old. And that's pretty awesome, guys. They've talked about both Power Ranger movies from 95 and 2017 recently, Beauty and the Beast, Get Out. They talk about just cool movies, and they rediscovering cool movies, really. So if you'd like to go back and watch movies of yesteryear, this is the podcast for you. Check it out on coretemparts.com. Back to the show.
And you talked about emotion, and I think, going back to movies a little bit, the best sports movies are always football movies, and that's just a fact. And I think, as someone who wants to make films in the future, I'd love to make a good soccer movie. Just something that Americans even can because a lot of Americans really shit on soccer, and I understand because you have the MLS, which is literally the worst league in the world. But and I'm sorry if I'm offending people by saying that, but you just watch the Premier League and watch the MLS, it's like watching 5-year-olds play and then normal professional players. It's what it looks like. But all I was thinking after the Patriots went down, 21-0, I just thought of 2 movies. I thought of Remember the Titans, and then I thought of Facing Giants. And there's literally and I'm just thinking holy crap, they're going to come back. Even though the Patriots are the Giants, they're going to come back. They're going to bring it back. And for me, this game confirmed, and some people might argue with this, but that Tom Brady is GOAT. Like, he is the greatest of all time, I'd say, when it comes to, he's pretty close. And if he's not your greatest of all time, he's probably up there, because what he's done for that franchise, considering he was selected, what was it, 199th overall
Yeah,
or something like that?
Yeah.
Like, I just think that it's unbelievable what he's done for them. And honestly, I won't say this. I wasn't a bandwagon, but I did support the Pats in the final just because I have so many friends who are Pats fans, and I had no sort of connection to the Falcons. And yes, I understood they were underdogs, but they looked like the better team going into the Super Bowl. So I thought, it would be an interesting game, and it turned out into one of the greatest games of all time, if not the greatest game of all time.
It is probably, that Super Bowl was probably the most interesting game I've seen in the last 10 years easily.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, I have a hard time saying that Brady is the GOAT just because I don't like the guy. I think he is more overrated than that. He's good. I think he's a top, probably 5, top 10 definitely, probably top 5 quarterback. I don't think I can argue that. I think that now this year I would say that maybe he just was truly just great. And he proved it in that game. I don't think that I can deny that. But I think in years past, in the mid 2000s and stuff, I think that he also just had, it wasn't him. He had such a great offensive line. He had great receivers. So I think that a lot of the credit that he gets actually belongs to the team that he was involved with.
And I get that too. Yeah. And I think, as an Eagles fan, it's hard for me to say. And I just think, I haven't grown up with any other players who rival him. So that's maybe why I would agree with that statement. But I gotta say, the balls on that guy, he's certainly a cocky guy, and I kind of like that when you kind of just expect to win. Like, this guy pre-recorded an advertisement where he's won 5 rings, and it came out the next day after the Super Bowl, and he pre-recorded it. And like, I really appreciate that sort of cockiness, but it's not in like a mean way. It's just like, okay, I expect to win because I have a good team around me, and this is what I expect of myself. And when I played basketball in high school, that's kind of what I expected of myself too. And I was not a very good basketball player. I thought I was pretty good, but I wasn't amazing or anything. And it was mostly down to height and stuff. But Tom Brady's fought through a lot. He doesn't have the biggest height on him. He's not the strongest guy. He wasn't picked number 1 overall. Like, he's fought against a lot of odds, and I kind of respect that. I have a quiet respect for him. Like, I still think, I don't like him whenever he plays against Philly, which is, occasionally, so I hate him then, and I will call him an asshole or whatever, but I have a quiet respect for him. That I think if a player is good, you're gonna respect them unless they're an asshole,
Yeah, and I can agree to that to a certain extent. See, for me is, my favorite quarterback of all time is Cunningham. Just nice. Not just because he's an Eagle, but because he was I don't want to call him the greatest of all time, but he was just such a phenomenal athlete. Whereas, but like one of my modern day quarterback that I think is, and again, saying the greatest of all time is probably arrogant and incorrect, but Peyton Manning to me, I love Peyton Manning. I think that, I think that because he has less rings than Brady, shouldn't make him a lesser quarterback. I understand. I get why it does, but to me, the whole concept of any given Sunday comes into play there. Like, it's not about that one game. It's a championship game, and you need to win games to get there. I understand that. But I think to be a good quarterback is more than just that one game. And I think Peyton Manning, I think I think what makes him better than Brady, and this is my opinion, I'm probably in the minority when I say what makes him better than Brady, is that he is he has a better mindset for the game. He's a guy that can go out there and doesn't need a coach to call plays. He's a guy that goes out there and he's a coach when he's out there. Yeah. He's a guy that in a few years I think we'll see become a coach in the league. If he's not busy doing acting, because he's also a really funny guy that I think has a talent that he can be an on-screen personality as well. But if he wanted to become a coach, I think he would be become a Super Bowl winning coach.
Yeah, and I just it's interesting that you bring that up. You were talking about greatest players of all time. I want to tell a funny story in a sec, but when I think of greatest, like one of my favorite players of all time, I think of Brian Dawkins. And again, I'm biased. I'm an Eagles fan, and then I also love Donovan McNabb because he was just a great quarterback for us for a while, right? But I think that, Brian Dawkins, not a lot of people talk about him, but he was a fucking amazing player. Like, one of the best safeties of all time.
Oh, my God. Yes, he is. And I have his, well, actually, I think his jersey may have got ruined, the one that I had. But he was, I think, the first real jersey I bought was B-Doc. He was, when he was playing, probably my favorite player on the team. Yeah. And he is the reason that I am also a Broncos fan, because he went to the Broncos.
Nice. And that makes sense.
Yes, and that's like, going back to discussing the type of fans you are, like, so I'm the type of fan that mainly is a fan of teams because I was born in that city. But I also go on to like teams based off of players, and obviously the Colts I liked because of Manning, but the Broncos I would say that before the Steelers became my number 2 team was actually the Vikings, because Cunningham went there.
Nice.
And I still have a quiet respect for the Vikings. I don't know, I would maybe buy a throwback Cunningham jersey for Vikings, but I don't think I would really go and buy anything else that was a Vikings, merchandise. But I have a quiet respect for them because I did like them at one point. Broncos are a team that I probably will always follow because I just, was such a fan of them when B-Doc went there, and I was like, I can still respect my Eagles while enjoying this other team because B-Doc's there, and then Manning went there, and that's totally a team that I will forever support, and that's. That's I guess maybe a fourth type of fan that you can be, is like you follow your players as well. And that's how, like, for me, between that and like fantasy football is like how I can respect so many different teams as long as you're not the Cowboys or Giants or Redskins.
Yeah, and the Minnesota Vikings always kind of make me laugh because I just always think of How I Met Your Mother and Marshall, Jason Segel in that show. So I always kind of laugh when I see them on because I think of him. But it was a funny story. I was talking to this old guy I met in Florida, and I don't think he really got the memo because he told me his favorite player of all time in the NFL was O.J. Simpson.
Oh, my God.
So that was pretty funny for me, because I just finished watching The People versus O.J. Simpson, so I was like, holy shit. But I guess, if the glove don't fit, you must have quit. So.
Oh, God, that's funny.
No, but...
and I haven't watched The People versus O.J. yet. That's something it's on my Netflix queue.
Yeah.
But as as I was alive for that.
You old bastard.
As a person who wasn't alive for that, what's your take on watching that series and just on the case in general?
Yeah, so watching the series, it was really interesting. After the case, I actually covered this with Mo from TV Movie Mistress. I covered the entire show with her, and it was really interesting because she asked me this question. She said, do you think he did it? And since I wasn't alive at the time, it's really hard. The facts point that it looked like he did do it. And there's just so many different things around it that are really suspicious, and Robert Kardashian and all that. And I really liked the show. The show was absolutely phenomenal, and it's the reason why I didn't watch the documentary OJ Made in America, which won the Oscar for Best Documentary, just because I had watched the show. So I love the show. I love seeing David Schwimmer back in acting, and I thought he was great as Rob Kardashian. Like, I remember watching him rap against James Corden, and he was like, you played a Kardashian on TV, but that was only for pretend, and I laughed so hard at that. That was just hilarious, because, the Kardashians are such huge, reality TV stars nowadays, and kind of a joke, honestly. They're American. They're American, thank goodness.
They're Americans, Justin Bieber.
yeah, but it was really funny watching the show, because you saw the little Kardashian girls, and I just thought, like, wouldn't it be cool to ask them if they thought OJ did it, because they can't really answer because their dad fucking defended the guy. Yeah. But it was a good show. I thought it was really well done, really interesting, and I loved dissecting it, really. But yeah, it must have been a crazy time, because I heard that's when they started showing, like, car chases on TV, and when 24-hour news really started, and that's how CNN got their big start as well. So sadly, OJ didn't do many good things for us, because now we have all these different news networks who are, like, kind of, a lot of them just being a total joke and helping your crazy president win. So I don't know, man. I think OJ should go to prison, not just for that murder, but for making CNN popular, because they didn't. They just kept saying Trump's not going to win. He's an idiot, and then he fucking won.
Well, that's, I don't want to get into it, only because that's like a whole nother hour.
I know, it's another hour. I'm not going to get into it either. All I'm going to say is that we are always here for you. You are always welcome in Canada. I'll put you up with a place. I'll hook you up.
Nice. It is actually kind of really, like, heartwarming to know that Canada was so, and that, I mean, Ireland did the same thing. Like, one of the mayors of one of the cities in Ireland, like, opened up his town to Americans. But I guess it was before the election. It was definitely before the election, but I think it was close to it. That this firm in Toronto, like, created this little campaign that was, America, we already think you're great. You don't need to be great again.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I saw that. That was fantastic.
And I saw that. I was like, man, that just shows you that, like, and as an American, I would hope that if the reverse happened and there was, like, the Canadian Trump running for prime minister, that we would do something like this. But Americans are assholes.
No, seriously, you got to start getting worried, because the guy who's winning the conservative leadership race right now is literally Trump. He ran Shark Tank in Canada, so Dragon's Den, and he is an idiot, like an absolute idiot. So I might join the Conservative Party just so I can vote against him for the Conservative leadership. Like, that's how much I do not want him. His name's Kevin O'Leary, and please, anyone who is listening, please spread it around that he cannot speak French and he is in a bilingual country. He does not speak French, and he is in a bilingual country.
I mean, if something happens where he ends up winning, I'll give Trudeau my citizenship so he can run for president, because it seems like he would be a swell dude in office.
No, you know what's interesting about Trudeau is that his approval ratings are lowering because he's dividing the country a lot, because, like, the whole West hates him because he's talking about phasing out the oil sands, which Alberta and BC are very well known for, and then when he's in the West, he's saying a completely different story. So he's not doing as well as the media would make you think. It's kind of, interesting being in Canada, because a lot of people are saying he's already lost his re-election bid just because and I think if there's this guy I really like called Maxime Bernier. He's a Québécois, so I don't know why I like him, but he has some really good ideas, and I really respect him. I think he has some ideas that will make the Conservative Party a little more progressive, but also try and look at the whole. I'm someone who believes in the whole balance of politics, which means social, economic, and environmental. So you look at all three of the issues and try and deal with them equally. And so obviously it's really hard to find a party for that. But if you can, I feel like you look more for a leader. At least I do. I don't look at a party. I look more at a leader, because in Canada, the Conservatives are much closer to the middle, as well as the Liberals, than the Republicans and the Democrats, where they're so far to the left and so far to the right, it gets kind of scary sometimes, right? So,
yeah. Oh God.
no, but all I can say is like, yeah, you guys are always welcome here, and it's really funny, but I gotta say, America kind of had it coming after making fun of us for our Toronto mayor Rob Ford. Like, they kind of had it coming.
Yeah, this is our payback. Is
You got
well,
Trump.
and it is. I made this joke when we did our show live in January. We did a live event, and we were talking about Trump, and I was like, it's watching it. It's been at that point. I think it was like a couple weeks. I was like, it's been a couple weeks, and like, it's. I gotta say, like watching him on TV and just seeing the words President Trump and just. It's truly like the Idiocracy is coming true. That movie was not a fictitious movie. It was predicting the future. Like it is truly happening. And that's all I gotta say on the pod. I've talked it to death, especially during our live shows.
Yeah,
it's the easy punch.
Yeah. But I totally agree with you. I think, and we've talked about it enough in, all the podcasting circles, right? So all I can say is if I want to say one thing about Trump, it's how much I've noticed him in movies lately. I've watched Home Alone 2. He's been mentioned in Friends. He's come up in other shows. And then I was watching some old WWE videos and I saw him shaving Vince McMahon's head. It's just like, what the hell? Why is this guy suddenly like appearing everywhere and being mentioned in 90 shows?
The picture that was going around of, I guess it was the day that Linda McMahon got sworn in as the small business administrator or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was the McMahon family taking a picture with Trump. I saw that picture circulating around with the little fact of Stone Cold Steve Austin has given a stunner to 46% of these people. And maybe it was 64%. I forget what the percentage was. But like every adult except for Shane McMahon's wife, Stone Cold Steve Austin had given a stunner to.
Wow.
And including the President of the United States.
I know.
Which my response was like, well, I think what we're missing here is that America has just been one long WWE storyline. Like, that's all we've been.
Fucking A, right?
And that's what it feels like. It feels like.
Yeah. Oh my God, it does. But, it's really interesting, just kind of watching films today, like films that were made in the 80s and stuff. It's like interesting kind of the parallels you see that, kind of rival today. And I watched a movie recently called Get Out. It made the rounds in the horror world, and it was kind of scary how it still applied today, kind of in 2017. And obviously it was made in 2017 or 2016, but it had some really interesting social commentary that applied like right now. And it was just kind of interesting watching that, and just watching a lot of movies and saying, holy shit, like what the hell is happening to this world, especially America.
Well, so that's that kind of brings us back to the interview a little bit. So where is like your love of movie come from? Like, where's that origin?
Well, I watched movies when I was small, like all the time. I think one of the first movies I ever saw was Toy Story 2. My mom didn't let me see Toy Story 1 for a while because it was a little scary, and I'm kind of glad because that crazy messed up kid who killed his toys really fucked me up when I saw it. But yeah, I love kids. I loved kids. I loved movies from an early age. But it was when I moved to Mantic, which is just outside of Ottawa in Canada. And there was a local video rental store. Yes, I'm old enough to have rented movies from a video rental store.
Really? That's so interesting that they were around then.
No, but I know I loved it because I'm an avid collector of Blu-ray copies because DVDs are becoming more and more extinct. Kind of I've seen, but I have probably just under 200 Blu-rays, and I'm collecting more and more every day. But I love it, and I went to this video rental store, started talking to this guy, and we just became fast friends. And he's the guy who actually made A Tale of Two Dans with me. His name was Dan as well. And he just introduced me to all of these movies. He introduced me to Quentin Tarantino, to Martin Scorsese, who is probably my favorite director of all time. And it just got, I started loving films, and I started writing screenplays when I was probably like 13, 14. And I just want to be a filmmaker, man. It's just like like my dream. I know a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I want to win an Oscar. I want to have a film play at the Toronto International Film Festival. If I do that, my life's complete. Like I will die happy. Like, I just,
That's awesome.
it's just it first of all, it's a festival I've gone to quite a few times now, and it's in Canada, so it's literally the friendliest festival in the world, I'd say. Because like, even at shitty movies people still clap, which is kind of sad, because it's shitty movies, you just should let them know and be honest. But I understand why we do it, because we're so polite. But literally, I'm wearing this Joey shirt. It says Dr. Drake Ramore saved my life. And it was really good. It was a lot of fun. But people complimented me and were like, "Oh, that's such an awesome shirt. Do you know where I can get it?" I got like 8 compliments in one day just from that shirt. And obviously I know why, but any other day I would get no compliments. But at that place I did, and it was just like, I just love the film community, because there's so many good people and only a few bad apples who kind of are like, "Oh no, your opinion's wrong, my opinion is fact." And I can't deal with those people. It's just not worth talking to them. But I got into a love of film, and I have a few passion projects that I really want to finish, and I feel like they're like movie worthy stuff. Like one is about Heysel, which was this soccer disaster that happened in the 80s, and it actually got all the English soccer teams kicked out of Europe from playing from Europe because of football hooliganism. And I feel like it's a really good story that could one day really, I guess, be a good soccer movie that the regular audience will enjoy, because it's got some historical stuff and some crazy shit that happened. And then another one I'm working on right now is about the Nazi hunters of the 50s and 60s, because I have a deep sympathy for the Jewish community and what they've gone through and what they're still going through. And I feel like no one's made a Nazi hunter movie yet that like has some historical accuracy. And it would be so awesome. And I feel like, we already have our actors, Michael Fassbender or Brad Pitt, just because I love them in Inglourious Bastards and they do so many war movies. And, obviously that's a little dream, but like I feel like this could be a movie that could be really character based, and not like just like it shows like, kind of the revenge aspect, but also possible story that could, bring some forgiveness. And that's always been my goal in filmmaking. That's what I look for in films, is films that have a message and a meaning, but also films that can have an impact. And I recently had an interview with a director who made this movie about the Holodomor, which was the Ukrainian genocide that no one knows about. Like, no one knows about. Stalin, he made Hitler look like an amateur maniac. Like, he was an awful person, and he killed probably upwards of 60 million people or something like that. And not a lot of people know that. A lot of people are like, "Oh, Hitler, worst guy ever." No, Stalin was worse, but it's like the best kept secret. And it's just talking to this guy, and yes, it wasn't the greatest movie in the world, but he made this film so people would know about it. And especially with my generation, a lot of us, not me included, because I love books, but a lot of millennials will not want to sit down and read a book, don't have the attention span to do that. So what better way to get through to an audience than show it through an entertaining way, but also through an informative way? And, a quick side note, the only reason I got into books, this just shows how competitive I was in grade 4. If you read a book and answered a question about it, you got points, and at the end of the year you would win an award if you had the most points. And that's how I started reading, and I've read ever since. So.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that the reading isn't lost on you. Not that I'm a huge reader. Like, I am someone who enjoys reading, but I am in I am in such like a content creator mode that I'm really picky with my content intake, and like I have to be in a mood to read and whatnot. But reading as a kid is something I did all the time, and it's something that I push on my kids a little bit. Like, make sure that we read at least a few nights a week, if not every night a week, depending on how late it is when we're getting ready for bed. It is we are, as we move further into the future with technology and whatnot, it's reading has become almost a thing of the past, and
it's sad.
Yeah, it is, and it's like I am of the mindset, and it could be because I'm in my 30s, but
You're old.
I get the idea of a Kindle. I get the idea of having the digital reader because it's a lot easier to carry 100 books on that than to have 100 actual books. But like I love holding a book. Like I need to hold a book and flip through the pages when I read. I would probably read a lot more if I accepted a tablet as a device, because I have a bunch of ebooks on my Kindle app, but I don't ever sit down and read them because I need to sit down
on the tablet. I can't, and it's just the thing for me. I like collecting my books, and I want to go back to what you said about how Canada's great, and I totally agree with you. You're so smart, Kevin. But no, I just want to talk to you about Argo, the movie that won Best Picture in 2012. Like there wasn't. It was quite dramatized for the movie, but also the Canadians were much more involved than anything than the movie showed. And the Canadian guy, the American CIA agent who brought them through, wrote a book about it. His name was Tony Mendez, and he actually talked about how the Canadians broke their laws to make real passports to give to these Americans. Like they actually broke the law. Their own law, and and it was just so cool that and I tried to reach out to him to get him on the podcast for an interview, but I sadly found out that he has Parkinson's, which was really sad to hear. And I just want to say on here, thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family for that, but and the amazing things he did for America. But it's just kind of interesting. Like I love learning that sort of stuff, but I think books are you always have to research, and especially when movies are based off books or based off historical events, I feel like you always have to read and read more into it and get into it to really capture the full scope of everything.
Totally, 100% agree. And there's so many things I want to touch on, and we'll definitely have to have another interview one day. But before we leave, I just to kind of give our audience the comparison of you as a film person who is 18 years old. So let's put that in we've heard you as a film person at 18 years old, and me as a film person who. I would say that I've always enjoyed watching movies, but I never had that passion of wanting to create movies until I was probably 25 or 26 years old. Mm-hmm. Something finally clicked with me. It was this is kind of a thing that I think I would want to do. Yeah. And we've have several outlines and things written, and just need to find time and money to sit down and do it. You Scorsese is your guy. So 18, you want to make movies, Scorsese. 25, so for me 7 years ago, I knew I wanted to make movies. And Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith is awesome. I know a lot of people give people shit, but he is such a cool guy because he got his own funding. He did everything, himself, and I have a lot of respect for that. So, first of all, your name is Kevin, right? So, go for it. And second of all, I was joking about the old thing, by the way. I think 33 is very young still.
Well, and it's here's my mindset when it comes to age and doing things that are either a bucket list or a dream of some sort, is that it doesn't matter how old you are when you do it. You always have time. It shouldn't use that as an excuse, because you can, and I've been I have caught myself in that trap of I have time to do it, and I put it off to do it later. Yeah. So you can get caught in that mindset, but if you don't get and if you don't get caught in that mindset, and you just know that hey, I can still do it. I'm 33, or hey, I'm Tim Miller, who directed Deadpool. He was 50 years old. He is 50 years old. Yeah. So and that was his first big thing that
Bryan
he made.
Cranston, look at him. He only started getting big once he was 52 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. He had nice character actor roles in sitcoms and stuff when he was younger. Yeah. He started out as a voice actor in Power Rangers, ironically enough.
Which is now what he's doing. I think that's amazing, yeah.
yeah. So it's as long as you don't use it as a handicap, really, and just keep on putting it off, I think that as long as you know that I'm going to do it one day and I'm not going to use it as an excuse to put it off, age has no matter when you become a generator with content. And like, it's for me, like, hey, you want to do something small. Like, this is something that I finally learned this, like, literally within the last month or two, was that, okay, we have all these projects that we want to sit down and do, but like, we can't do that. It was listening to Kevin Smith talk about writing Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, where he said, after 20 plus years, I know how to write for a budget now. Like, when I wrote Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, I had all these wacky ideas that we needed money for, and we needed to find the money for it. But now I know that I'm not going to get $20 million or however much, he got to make Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. I know that I need to write for a budget, so I'm going to write smart. So, like, knowing that, and also knowing that, like, okay, talking to Casey Spivey, for instance, or Spiffy. I did it again. Sorry, Casey. That nothing you do, your first project is always, it's probably going to suck.
Yeah.
You can try real hard to not make it suck, and you may succeed. But for the majority of us, your first project's going to suck. So why not, put your things that you really want to do, like, set them to the side, and do something that you don't care if you fail on, because because all failing is success training. So, like, it's okay if I fail at the first thing. So that's why, like, finally, like, it's like, long story short is, like, that conversation with Casey, listening to Kevin Smith and whatnot, is like, all right, talk to my business partner and guy who, like, he also helped me get into film, because he's I think he's a SAG actor, or maybe he let that expire, but he's acted in the past. And him and I sat down and said, I talked to him, I was like, let's, like, just do something. Like, let's not keep putting it off to until we have the money to do it, to make it the best that it is, because we're never going to get there without doing something first. So we finally, we hit a good, like, 30-minute short that we want to do that is not only good if we, once it's written down and written well, like, but it's also, like, if it fails, who cares? I know, like, it's a one-setting place. We have the setting already. Like, we can write within our budget. It's all just genius things. So I don't know what advice you have as a young person who wants to be a filmmaker, but, like, something that, like, I've kind of just learned is, like, write within your budget and just fucking do it.
Yeah, and sometimes you can do things like write crazy things that, you can put to the side. And I have two quotes for you. First was, if you fail, try again. And then to bring a sports analogy into it, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Yes. I definitely agree with that. I was, interestingly enough, talking to the writer of Drive. I don't know if you've seen that film, which is the Ryan Gosling movie.
No. But I know what you're talking about.
And he also did The Two Faces of January. And then he's also writing a movie for Cary Fukunaga, the guy who did True Detective and Beast of No Nation, writing a movie about Hiroshima. And he just told me that, he had so many passion projects that would cost like $100 million to make. So he kind of tables them and writes, screenplays that, he knows can get made because they're not going to be crazy budgets or anything like that. And I think for me, it's, just write. Just even if you're writing something crazy, like a sci-fi or something, just write it and get it out of the way. Because if you stop writing, then you'll get stuck in this perpetual funk, and you can't. Sometimes a lot of people don't get out of it, and they give up, on life, or they, give up on their dreams, and for a little while that was me. Like, I stopped writing, and I was in a bad place with that, and I wanted to make films, but nothing was coming to me. And then I started this site, and it just helped me, because it inspired me in a way, because so many young writers out there, and it really did help me. And just talking to these filmmakers now, it's giving me a new zest. And I'm gonna start writing a new screenplay right now, this week actually. The next 2 weeks are interesting for me because they're leading up to my 19th, and I'm swearing off all sugar and eating healthily, going to the gym, and then also I want to write every day, even if it means one page or 2 pages. And that's kind of like my goal, is to get at least a concrete thing going before my 19th, and say, okay, I did something in my last few weeks as a young 18-year-old first time adult. So
Yeah, I think that's something that if you can just say, hey, I want to write every day, no matter how much it is. I think that's so important. It's something that I have said and have failed at, and just need to, I need to. It's not hard to find that time. You can. I mean, for instance, before we started this interview, you had to say, "Yo, wake up, asshole," because I fell asleep waiting for you. And
I know that was my fault, though. That was not your fault.
Which is I don't care. Like I'm 100% a night owl, but I was like, all right, I know he's not on yet. I'm gonna lay down. I'm just gonna lean back in my recliner.
I loved listening to you snore. It's very soothing.
But like, I could have spent that 20 minutes. Let's say I could have written a page or two of whatever I'm working on. Whether it's the book I'm working on or whether it's a screenplay I'm working on.
But if you hadn't slept, you wouldn't have been as funny as you are right now. So I think it was
exactly
time well spent.
Yes, my first love for the last decade has been podcasting. So I will usually put that first.
Yeah.
Even though I should be putting some time and energy into other things, I will eventually. Again, it's not too late. I'm still creating content. As long as I'm creating content, I'm doing something right.
Yeah, I totally agree. I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's. Well, yeah, and for me, I just want to say Scorsese. I know we mentioned him, but the main reason why I love him is because he is the most humble director I've ever had the pleasure of listening to. Like the guy said he wasn't worthy of making Silence until now. Like the best director of all time, who's made countless classics, said he didn't think he was good enough to make Silence. Like, God, like I have so much respect for the man. Yeah. If I'm 1/100th of the director he is, I will be happy. Honestly.
Meanwhile, if I am 1/100th of the director of Kevin Smith,
there you go. Let's go, Kevin Smith.
It's I have that Kevin Smith mentality. If I set the bar real low, it's hard to trip over it.
There we go.
All right, Daniel, please give out some plugs before we let you go.
Yes, so guys, you can find me on Twitter and Facebook at Get Real Movies, GETREELMOVIES. And you can also find our site at getrealmovies.com, and then you can find the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and all that jazz. And definitely check out our site, because we have some really young writers and some interesting young opinions. And one of our writers, Ben Skanga, is 14 years old, and he is probably one of the best writers on there. Not saying that the other writers aren't great as well. They're all fantastic. So definitely check us out. And thank you, Kev. This was kind of last minute, but I love it. And I love coming on. And it was a fantastic time talking to you.
Yes, thanks for coming on. I can't wait to have you on again, because I feel like there's so much conversation left.
Yeah, we spoke a lot about football. I love it.
Yeah. I love conversations that go like in a completely different direction. Wasn't expecting to talk sports at all today. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely thank you for being on the show. It was very last minute, and just a nice, pleasant surprise to happen. It was originally I had nothing going on tonight, so I'm glad I spent it talking with you, talking about movies and sports and whatnot.
And we'll have to get you on our show too, because
totally. Yeah, 100%. I love going on the shows. So anytime you need a guest, anytime you need to go bottom of the barrel, I'm there.
Hey, you're not bottom of the barrel. You're up there with Kevin Smith almost.
Yeah, just above the surface. All right. You can find me on Twitter at ThatNerdyKev. You can find this show on Twitter at RealAwesomePod. You can find us, of course, on AwesomePodcast.com. We're also part of the Core Temp Arts Podcast Network on CoreTempArts.com. You can find us all over the place, ThatEntertains.com. If you want to support this show on Patreon, Patreon.com/ThatEntertains. Oh, God, there's everything. You just go on to our websites and you know how to find us and support us. It's all
really fun. Until next time, make sure you check us out on Twitter. Listen to the show right here, only on awesomepodcast.com. We've been awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Court and Parts Podcast Network. To listen to more Court and Parts shows, visit courtandarts.com.